And Ukraine witnesses a relentless Russian shelling amid renewed pounding from Moscow. Kyiv claims that Russian shelling at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant damaged 3 radiation sensors and hurt a worker in the second attack on Europe's largest nuclear facility. Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky labelled Saturday night's shelling Russian nuclear terror that warranted more international sanctions, including Moscow's nuclear sector. He said that there is no such nation that could feel safe when a terrorist state fires at a nuclear plant.
I spoke today with the President of the European Council, Charles Michel, informed him about the situation on the battlefield, about the threat that Russia created by striking the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. There is no such nation in the world that could feel safe when a terrorist state fires at a nuclear plant. God forbid, if something irreparable happens, and no one will stop the wind that will spread the radioactive contamination. Therefore, a principled response of the international community to these Russian attacks on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the largest in Europe, is needed now.
However, contrary to Kyiv's claims, Moscow alleges that it was Ukraine that had hit the site with a multiple rocket launcher, damaging administrative buildings and an area near a storage facility. Zaporizhzhia is the largest of Ukraine's 4 nuclear power plants, which together provide about half the country's electricity. The power plant's net capacity stands at 5.7 gigawatts. Russia's invasion of Ukraine marks the first time when a war has broken out in a country with such a large and established nuclear power program. The plant is of strategic importance to Moscow because it is only about 200 kilometers away from Crimea, annexed back by Russia in 2014. The attacks at the Zaporizhzhia site, where Kyiv had previously alleged that Russia hit a power line on Friday, have alarmed the world. The International Atomic Energy Agency has warned against risk of a nuclear disaster, while the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned against the risk of nuclear confrontation and added that an attack on a nuclear plant is a suicidal thing. Guterres called for international inspectors to be given access to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant.
Any attack to a nuclear plant is a suicidal thing, and I hope that those attacks will end. And at the same time, I hope that the IAEA will be able to have access to the plant and to exercise its mandate competencies.
Zaporizhzhia, right next to Donbass, a region where Putin's troops are trying to gain full control. In 2014, pro-Moscow separatists have seized the territory after the Kremlin annexed Crimea to the south in 2014. And for more on this, our correspondent Trent Murray is joining us now from Berlin. Thank you so much for joining us, Trent. There is heightened nuclear risk as Russia continues its assault on major power plants in Ukraine. Now, President Zelensky says that this warrants fresh international sanctions. What sort of practical responses can we expect?
Well, I think much of Europe has woken up this Monday in a heightened state of alarm and alert over those incredibly distressing reports from over the weekend that the continent's largest nuclear power plant has found itself being hit by rockets and artillery fire in the middle of that active war zone. Now, of course, the Ukrainians are pointing the finger at the Russians are pointing the finger at the Ukrainians, but certainly what Kyiv is calling for, as you say, is more sanctions now against Russia and in particular its nuclear industry. Now, that will be problematic. That is because Russia's main nuclear body is in partnership with several European countries building nuclear power plants here. Specifically, Rosatom is building plants in Hungary, and also France's EDF works with Rosatom on the nuclear fuel manufacturing side of things. So there is a relationship there, but I think right now, while those discussions of sanctions are happening, I think the bigger picture is here that we have had a nuclear facility damaged over the weekend in this war. And of course, that could have devastating consequences, not just for Ukraine, but for Europe as a whole.
Absolutely. Now, they've also called for international inspectors to be given access to Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. What can we expect going forward?
Yeah, that's right. Rafael Mariano, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, putting out that statement overnight saying he's calling for the two sides to let in a safety team immediately, an independent safety team from the UN. He says we can put together a safety, security and safeguards mission and deliver the indispensable assistance and impartial assessment that is needed. That's what he said in that statement. I don't know that will be easy to get in there, because that right now is an active conflict zone. We know fighting has intensified in that region in the past couple of days. I think more concerningly as well for the IAEA is that there had long been sensor systems installed in that nuclear power plant as well as other nuclear plants in Ukraine, so that at least the international community could get a gauge of where things were at. But we understand that some of those sensors were damaged over the weekend when those rockets hit, and so there is a bit of an information blackout, if you will, around the exact situation. I don't think there is necessarily a major cause for alarm right now that there hasn't been any radioactive leakage, but again, this is a very unprecedented situation. The industry will tell you we have never in the nuclear atomic age had a nuclear power plant in the middle of a war zone, and so really I think this is now causing a lot of concern for European capitals, who will be putting additional pressure on both sides, especially Russia, to make sure that that nuclear power plant is not compromised in any way.
Right, absolutely, Trent. I believe practical steps remain to be seen in this case. Thank you for joining us on this broadcast. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.